The following hour is brought to you by MidasResources.com. Call Midas Resources today to protect your future at 1-800-686-2237.
And it's hour 3 of the Nutrimedical Report Thursday, live the 12th of June. And Thursday, I'll tell you, I want to just give an advanced report from what Chris will be on for probably a few minutes, but we want you on the full hour, Tim. The concern over full plutonium flash at the WIP nuclear site, triggering a disaster that spreads to multiple waste drums. Plutonium-239. This is the main radioactive isotope and container that exploded. Anonymous employee. The warnings were ignored. They put us in danger. They had a nuclear explosion triggered off by this green kitty litter ordered by Obama and the Department of Energy to probably go green. But we're going to expand on that later. This is the kind of news.
Plutonium is the most dangerous substance on Earth.
Known to man. Yeah, exactly. Yep. One atom will kill you. Anyway, Tim, let's go on. Continue your analysis blog on the news. And what I want to do is kind of look into some of the world news items that are just popping up. If you pull up the blog, the latest, of course, is the first terror group to build an Islamic State. It's called ISIS, okay? The face of the balding, middle-aged man staring unmistakably into the camera. He's dressed in a suit and tie and could pass for a medieval bureaucrat. So they call ISIS. You mentioned about this before.
The Islamic, Republic of... I've been dealing with this for so many hours, my brain is dead. Of Iraq and the Lebanon. Yeah,
well, they basically...
Like
what happened is the ISIS shelling Kirkuk, Kurdish Peshmerga-controlled areas south of Kirkuk. But basically, the Kurdish are armed to the teeth now with our oil money, and they took over the northern city of Kirkuk. They're carving out their own Kurdish empire, aren't they?
Yes, they are, and by taking over Kirkuk, they have taken over a key refining and oil producing and natural oil transmission area. It's sitting on top of a very large oil field. So now they don't have to take a percentage, which they've been getting under the Iraq government. Now they can take it all. One thing we didn't cover in the earlier segment that I was on, last night we sent in 4,000 U.S. troops to Baghdad International Airport. Now, that's enough to secure some key facilities like our giant embassy, the largest in the world, at Baghdad. But it's not sufficient to break the tide. The Iraqi government has asked us for air support, and so far we have denied it. Of course, Obama is saying he'll do whatever it takes, but just because Obama says something, the difference between what Obama says and what Obama does is usually between day and night.
Tim, I got a report here just 44 minutes ago from Sydney Morning Herald, and Obama will not rule out anything according to their recent visit. He's visiting Mr. Abbott in Australia, in Aussie land.
Yeah.
And Australia is agreeing to up their cooperative defense with the U.S., so they gave the area of Darwin, Northern Australia, over to the Americans to set up new military bases against the Chinese. So we're seeing the battle lines line up for World War III, aren't we? And
Obama says, all options are open, but Obama, if anything, is a liar. The extremists are vowing to march on Baghdad to settle scores. They settle scores in the second largest city by cutting off the heads of a large number of soldiers and police officers and lining them up down a main roadway. Every few feet there was a bloody head lined up on the side of the curbs. Right. That's one of their trademarks. Now, it's important to understand we have been supplying, funding, and arming this group. Supposedly, we kind of split with them a month ago. Well, if you believe that, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn I can make you a heck of a deal on.
And, of course, the insurgents are vowing to take Baghdad, scores to settle. And this is right in the top news 24 minutes ago from USA Today. An al-Qaeda splinter militia advances on the capital. This is really explosive, and you don't hear anything from what I call the late-night TV host in chief. That's what we should call him, because he'd be a great late-night TV host. Obama has the skill sets. He can read a teleprompter. He's got the neurolinguistic programming. He's a good robot if he has good writers. Now, he needs good writers because he doesn't have a clue in his head.
And a good teleprompter.
Good teleprompter nearby. He'd be up there against Conan O'Brien and the other late-night guys like Jimmy Kimmel. I think he'd do fine, but I think as a president, he's a danger. We don't want him within about 10,000 kilometers of the nuclear football. We don't want him setting policy or sitting in the situation room of, yes, I'm really good at killing people, yeah. Isn't that great? This is not a video game,
well, who the
Mr.
heck
Obama.
is the guy? Who was his father? Who was his mother? Where was he born? What country is he a citizen of? Is he constitutionally eligible to be president? You know, those issues were not answered during the first campaign or the second campaign.
Yeah. Even if he was, let's say, from utter Bulgaria, is he competent? He's never run anything. He's just a social organizer taking from one group of people to another to say, you've got too much, I'm going to give it to the people who don't have enough. This is the deal. That's all he's done.
Yeah, he never ran so much as an ice cream stand. He worked at one, supposedly, when he was a kid living in Hawaii, but everything about his past is so
sanitized,
manipulated. This is so telling. Every single picture of him from childhood through law school has been photoshopped. Now, I invite all the millions of our listeners to think of this. How many of your childhood or high school or college photos have been photoshopped? Probably, I think about all of us could say none. I mean, there could be a few.
None, or one if you did it as a lark.
But the point is, they haven't been. But this character, everyone, all the experts say, everyone has been photoshopped. And when he, a couple years ago, when they released his birth certificate and all, it only took a few hours for many top experts that looked at it to come out and said, man, this thing has been toyed with so many times.
I got a new twist on that. Tim, I got a new twist on it. I know the problem is they're looking for a birth certificate, but they're not looking for a spawn certificate.
Oh, that is hateful. That is hateful. I love it. By the way, I do have to apologize to Michelle Obama because I reported several of the sites that have serious questions about whether she was, genetically a man or a woman. But I know someone that knows her cousin. And he says that's nonsense, that she really is a female. And if I was wrong on that, I apologize. But anyway, that doesn't change the fact that
but it still proves that she's, dangerous. And number two, I'm sure she can pin Mr. O. She outweighs him by quite a bit, I'm sure. I'm sure you can pin him.
Well,
so let's talk about some of the other
interesting headline from the Daily Star in the UK. On the brink of hell, Al-Qaeda offshoot beheads protesters as they seize Iraq. And, these guys are all dressed in black. Their flag is black with some white lettering on it. They are the monsters that the globalists and Zionists want to present as the Arabs.
Yeah,
and they are monsters. They're not just acting like it. They truly are.
Yeah. Tim,
and
here's
I
a new report.
guarantee you, if you are a Christian in the areas where they take over, your time is probably numbered in the minutes.
I got a tidbit for you here. CNN, 2 hours ago, report Ukraine official, Russian tanks have entered the country. 3 Russian tanks and other military vehicles across the border into Ukraine.
I have that on my site. It was 3 Russian tanks and several other armored vehicles. Right. I've been expecting this, and I'll tell you, I think if you would look at the tanks, you would see that the insignia is not the insignia of Russia, but the insignia of the new breakaway republic.
So what they did probably is they repainted them with the breakaway republic insignia to get politically distance Mr. Putin. And they just say
people in there that are tank experts that driving
Right,
and
so in other
firing
words,
tanks.
he's still trying to keep a political distance from him by just donating hardware. That's what I think. Back in a moment. So, Tim, you wanted to mention a couple of other important things in this segment. When I'm looking at the news item reports here, it appears that on multiple fronts we are having the East and the West coming together as war games, bringing weapons in, donating weapons. These tanks are obviously donated with markings for the local people, whether the people of Donetsk or Slavyansk, etc., that are revolting against the
it allows Putin to respond to the weaponry that's being used against the separatists without sending Russian troops in.
Same as the Iranians. The Iranians are donating missiles to Hezbollah, where most of those missiles are made. The Russians give the S-300 system already to the Syrians. If they decide, they've already given the Khan's hypersonic cruise missile, the Alexander, the Hoot supercavitation torpedo. If our Navy tries to start attacking, it's going to the bottom. And the Iranians don't even need to shoot one bullet. What happens to our military bases if they're targeted by Iran and Syria? They're going to go down.
Well, the Alexander or Alexander, it was named for, I think, Tsar Alexander II. The Alexander missile is so insanely fast. It's depending on which source you quote, it's around Mach 8. And we don't have anything to shoot it down. It was designed to take out key NATO bases and NATO radar bases and anti-missile bases on the periphery of Russia. And, we really can't defend against that. We can do other things to them, but it will get through. And they're aimed at key installations in Israel. They will basically, on day one, be able to knock out all power infrastructure in Israel and keep it knocked out for a long time.
Exactly.
Now, in Russia, of course, let's talk about these characters, these monsters in ISIS. We have funded them the entire time. We set up Al-Qaeda, and then supposedly we broke with them and demonetized them, but that was all nonsense. Al-Qaeda, it really never existed as a force. In fact, it means one of the translations means little toilet, and that was Israeli joke on the dumbasses out there buying into it, because no self-respecting Arab group would ever call themselves Little Toilet. But this latest permutation, the ISIS, has been funded, and supposedly a month ago we got a little bit of a spat with them, and we stopped funding them. Well, that's nonsense. That was a PR. The reality is we've been funding both sides in this war now in Iraq, this war that only began within the last 48 hours or so, but yet Baghdad is in danger of falling. They've asked for air support. We're not giving it, but Obama is saying we'll do whatever it takes. Well, if there's one thing that we all should have learned from Mr. Obama is he lies. He lies almost constantly, consistently, and totally. The man is a born liar. And
I don't think he actually is capable of the truth except accidentally.
Yeah, well, every once in a while he might screw up and tell the truth, but, that's few and far between.
Now, I want to make a quick comment here about Mr. Lavrov, and it's at the top of the news, on American News on Google. And he says, Russia sees American adventurism in Iraq behind current conflict. And he says it will end badly. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I linked something very similar to that. I'll tell you, it could end real badly. This is all developing, okay, and we've been a minute to World War III for about a month or more now in the Ukraine. Now we're a minute to World War III in the Middle East. The go is to take out Iran and Syria. That's what Ukraine was all about, to tie Russia down. Remember, less than a year ago, Russia sent its battle fleet off the shores of Syria when the United States, United Kingdom, and France and Israel were going to invade Syria because of their chemical weapons.
Right.
About 6 months before that, Israel and the United States were going to attack Iran, and Russia and China put their feet down. So they had to punish Putin, and they set a bear trap for him, for the Russian bear, and that was the Ukraine. Putin handled it beautifully. He seized the key property he had to have, and that was the Russian naval base.
Right. Sevastopol.
But he didn't go into the Ukraine, still hasn't. And when everybody, including myself, thought that was imminent. And the reason is he saw it as what it was, a bear trap. Because as soon as they were tied down, then the two large armies, NATO and U.S. armies in Jordan, and U.S. and Israeli armies in Israel, both on the border with Syria, could have went into Syria. That would immediately trigger missile attack from Hezbollah, a war in Iran, a war with Syria, and a war in Lebanon. That's what they want. That, in turn, will trigger the Third World War, and that's all tied into the global economic collapse that's coming, that's planned. They want to reduce the population. They want to give cover to what they're doing with the economy in the world, and there's no better cover than slapping wartime conditions on. You can't do this, you can't do that, you'll be arrested.
Including the Internet. In other words, communication, even commenting on things.
You and I will be silenced. Pop probably
Not really.
killed,
they won't silence us. We'll continue talking, but if we have to use an encrypted network, remember, there's a thing called cyberspace cloud. There's encrypted networks. There's ways of communicating. Even if we don't say it all in the show, we'll have blogs, we'll have ways of sending out encrypted communications. The people that want to know will find out.
Is they screw up a lot. Their thinking process is not necessarily that good. Now, I think this thing that they pulled with Iraq is pretty smart. Nobody expected it, and in 48 hours to go from kind of a little smothering thing on the back burner to Baghdad, over half the parliamentarians flee town, and Baghdad itself is in danger. That's a cute one. That's a cute one, but it's a cute one on the road to hell.
Right.
An immediate effect that we're apt to see, and I think Britain will face it quicker than us because they get so much of their oil from Iraq.
Right.
But you're going to see gas prices soar.
Yeah, let me give you a couple of more items to throw some news. I call some news meat out to you, Tim. This is from the Drudge Report. It talks about video. Thousands of soldiers captured by ISIS. Thousands. In red, video. They have video up there. A terrorist full-blown army. Medieval Sharia law imposed. Iraqi citizens join fight. Army collapses. Iran deploys forces. America evacuated. U.S. clearly flying in drones. Rebels made capture. Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. And if you look at the front page of Drudge, you'll see it says Baghdad is ready to fall. This is nightmarish, and I don't think people realize how serious and significant it is. The fall of Baghdad is designed to be the bear trap for Russia and Iran to start this big war, and that means that Muhammad or Ali, who is a devout Muslim, doesn't really want to harm anybody, but he will follow orders. And he's going to get his prayer mat out before this refrigerator in Chicago or Atlanta or Los Angeles. And he's going to go to the lyophilized flask in the back, and he's got probably a master's level in infectious disease at some university, probably highly qualified. And he'll pull that vial out, and he's going to start spraying it. If this war gets going, you're going to see Americans dying like flies from stupid super weapons, caused by our government having an idiot policy thinking that we can whack them, but they can't hurt us. And, of course, the same thing goes with our policy toward dealing with nuclear seismic testing, which shows most of our nuclear reactors can't withstand an earthquake, which we're going to talk about in a minute with Chris Harris. with Fukushima and with whip reactors in Carlsbad, New Mexico, where we now have a report that Chris sent me. And Chris, I'd like, rather than steal your thunder, I want you to read it. We talked about it briefly earlier about the whip reactor nuclear site and plutonium-239 actually causing a nuclear explosion. And, of course, the anonymous employee saying they put us in danger. Tell us about the whip reactor and what's going on there.
Oh, Dr. Bill, well, in the whip reactor, now remember, this report, there was a potential for the plutonium flash, which is a criticality event. I'm like I said, I haven't done the analysis on that myself. So let's go talk about what is. What is that the Department of Energy had a decision to cut back on the waste isolation pilot plant's safety requirements to save some money. And in that, they have also decided to make some changes to the packing material that's used in these highly radioactive waste drums, which contain plutonium salts. And they used an organic material instead of a non-organic material. And in fact, I was just talking it over today with one of my colleagues who is very esteemed in waste handling and waste processing. You know, we'll call him Barney for now. But he basically says, "Is that what they did? They put organic material in? That's a hydrogen explosion." And so, you know, in the presence,
but a hydrogen explosion can trigger criticality. Well, most people don't realize the Krytron switches that use C4 plastic, which is what they used to try to detonate the nuclear weapons back in the 1930s and 40s. They were actually using Krytron high-speed fast switches so they could simultaneously detonate and compress the ball of plutonium to create a nuclear explosion or criticality. When you have a hydrogen explosion, you can likewise create criticality, and what it does is it temporarily increases the neutron flux that causes a chain reaction, and that causes an explosion. So that's how it can happen. Hydrogen-triggered plutonium-239 nuclear explosions can be triggered by hydrogen, right?
That's right. Yeah, it all would depend, you know, whether they're going to achieve a critical mass or not. And there's like different categories of the criticality.
Yeah, but it may only be partial. Maybe it's not. Right. It's not clean, so it's only like 2% of the total mass of plutonium. But enough flux occurs, you get what's called a neutron flux, and then of course it blows up the bomb and disperses all the isotopes all over hell's half acre. So this is what happened with these green kitty litter from the Department of Energy and the Obama administration. They went green all right, but the green unfortunately was like the goblin from, Spider-Man. Yeah. The green was nuclear. It was bad idea. It was turning these things literally into cooking bombs. Crazy.
And it didn't have to happen this way. And
right.
What I'm also finding is that what part of the cutbacks, well, they lost track of specific drums and their locations in big vaults known as panels.
Right.
And so you really don't know where all this material is. They
didn't properly log it. In other words, they didn't log the material properly to be able to track it to which ones they modified with the new green kitty litter, did it?
No, I was, I was thinking, well, they have impeccable records, and it would be easy to...
You're hoping. You're hoping.
I just know the way that we do things, and
the way they should be done.
It makes sense. It should be done right, and I guess I was wrong. That it's done in a more.
You guys are impeccable because you're the safety guys who come in to clean up the mess or do a proper evaluation. That's the next question. The seismic testing here in America with the NRC started by Jasko before he was replaced because he was opening too many cans of worms. What's happening there? They finished their evaluation of all these nuclear plants and said, guess what? They all fail, or we're going to study a lot more. What's the outcome? What's going on with all these nuclear plants?
Several have failed outright where there's going to be modifications have to be made. I got to go ahead and write you a synopsis of those so that you have an idea. Others can be wished away, provided that there's enough analysis. Wished away is I guess that's a term we use, where you talk about sharpening the pencils and all that. However, it's still that's a lot of work in itself to sell that. You have to actually sell it. That that you are safe because you have this much margin of safety in the build of your plant. Well, that's...
Well, they should have data, though. I mentioned before they should have soil quality data on the structural integrity of welds, crystal data with basically X-ray and ultrasound of all the joints and welds and rivets. They should know the structural integrity of pipes that may be thinned out. They did a couple of years ago. They're actually trying to use a brush to clean out pipes in a nuclear reactor near Chicago. I'm trying to remember the name of the plant. I think we talked about this, and the actual brush went through the pipe. It's like, well, the brush should not go through the pipe. It actually punctured right through the wall of it, trying to clean it out.
Yes, it did.
What plant was that again?
I think that was Braidwood.
That's it, the Braidwood plant, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
right.
We're starting to build up a kind of a library. And by the way, this will be all in our book, which is going to include all the emails back and forth from Chris, all the analysis, other nuclear experts, plant pictures, diagrams, everything. And so we have actual site-specific engineering design things that can fix Fukushima. By the way, the other report that I have is that the ice wall, they're really, really starting to back off on the ice wall. What's the story there in Fukushima?
Okay, once again, I would talk to, like I say, a colleague of mine who is an expert in the area of cleanup, because he was on the 3 Mile Island cleanup project and all that. He is a renowned expert, and I said, well, what do you think of this ice wall? He just curled his lip and goes, nah, that's not going to get it. He's that kind of a guy. So, he's very candid and very open. And I'm going to tell you what, he said what they need is cofferdams that you could pump out from in between the two dams. So it's a cofferdam is actually two dams in a row. And actually that makes a lot of sense to me. And so you could keep pumping out from in between these, so you build like a big cofferdam around the plant of a material that's not ice, if you know what I mean. It's going to be a more steel. It's going to be a real robust structure, and they haven't entertained that yet. But you're basically, they're wasting their time with the ice walls, and plus, the added negatives of shifting, basically liquefying material, liquefying the ground around it, where you can cause sinkholes and other, believe me, they don't need any more problems than they already have. And they can also create more problems with an ice dam.
Exactly. And, of course, the ice dam is supposed to be above it. They should use Starlight, which I mentioned. I got the original information from Dr. Ron Klatz, head of A4M. Starlight will withstand 15 to 20,000 degree temperatures, is radiation resistant, won't crystallize and break down. And if they put a Starlight dam above it, they can divert the water away from the plant. Then they can set a seawall below it, filter that material out, turn it into solid radioactive waste, dispose of it in double-hulled ships, taking it away to it. The zinc mine is the deepest.
Uranium, what do you do with any of it? It's all poisonous. But...
Yeah. Welcome back, and we have more than 50% of the fuel rod assemblies transferred. That's 1,034 out of 1,533. Chris, these fuel rod assemblies, they've managed to get the easy ones. They're going to have more difficulty with the harder ones, and also the problem is, as you mentioned before, the seal on the overall fuel rod pool, cooling pool number 4. The common cooling pool they haven't touched, and of course the reactors 1, 2, and 3 they really can't touch. So this mess isn't going to go away. And Aquarium is probably 75 feet at least, or 25 meters below the plant. It's generating highly radioactive or tritiated water, which is superheated. It's generating criticality, which emerges from the ground and shoots neutron beams, which turn the air blue with beams of gamma rays that literally ionize the nitrogen. You can see blue beams above the Fukushima plant in the after sundown. This situation is extremely unstable, and I don't know where they're getting people, but after a period of time, these people get so sick they have to get new people. I guess the Yakuza and the supply them with enough people willing to do these things that are, in a sense, committing radioactive suicide. We have specific plans that we talked about to fix each of these areas. And the first thing is a Starlight wall above it to divert the water. The second is to put in a sealed seawall area below it to catch all the water before it goes out in the ocean. It's also to make sure they use ground-penetrating radar and block off all the steam vents that actually are superheated steam driving vented radioactive hot tritiated steam out toward the ocean floor that vents radiation across the ocean floor, which they could do with GPR, ground-penetrating radar. I think that they need to put underneath these reactors what I call boronated water and then hit it with the scalar frequency of boron and then basically form a supercrystalline and dry it out, literally turn it into a crystalline sarcophagus and stop trying to move things. I think that the idea of moving things is dangerous, other than the water that they have there, which they could do a multi-stage filter, which would include a sediment, linear charcoal, reverse osmosis, and an ion exchange resin. On a large scale, the system we use for pure water systems, which basically came from industry. And they tried to do this with the ALPS, but the incompetents that were doing ALPS were the same incompetents that did the kitty litter, green kitty litter, that turned literally into nuclear bombs. I can't believe they did this. They turned the WIP reactor storage containers into hydrogen-generating bombs that could then compress the plutonium-239 and create a partial criticality reaction, literally a nuclear explosion that would blow these containers all over the place. And that's what happened. So, Chris, what's going to happen in Fukushima? What's next?
Well, in the big picture is still getting the advanced liquid processing system running up and running. But, you're also talking about what used to be a 10-year projected cleanup that turned into a 20-year, and now I'm reading 50-year projected cleanup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not really making any progress even on the news reports. And when I go over, and you can go over, for example, if you go over to Jeff Francis' site and you look at what his latest news reports are, I don't see a lot of what I call real progress. I see a lot of hand-wringing. We see the West Coast near starfish near extinction. No one says rad. Post-Fukushima radiation near West Coast rising. Japan nuke professor R4 SPF flooring could go at any time. That's the reactor 4 cooling pool. The floor could drop, which is what you talked about. The tritium density in bypass well way over limit, which is the bypass well, the bypass water that's coming above the plant. Where head wells are going, by the way, were there even before they built Fukushima. Aerial photo shows desolation around Daiichi. Happy Fukushima video, radiation good for you. Isn't that crazy? Will fracking cause our next nuclear disaster? By the way, fracking, I think, was part of the reason why these plants went, besides the stupid idea that they had to green them. They were fracking, which caused, pumping water and chemicals down around this site, which is literally a half mile from the WIP plant. I think when you have a salt mine, why would you allow fracking? That's so crazy, isn't it? And, of course, by the way, fracking here in America is often near nuclear plants. It also can trigger off earthquakes. We know that the Department of Mines in Colorado in the 80s actually triggered off a 4-point-something earthquake just by pumping in water in the fault lines in up north of Denver. In Boulder. I can't believe they did that, but they said, oh, bad idea. The Department of Mines realized we can make earthquakes too. And, what I think is going to happen is the radiation isotopes are going to increase in density. And here's where I want to turn the question over to Tim. Tim, if they strike militarily, how likely is it they're going to strike the Bashar reactor? And what would be the consequences of hitting a large, older style, designed in the 70s, large nuclear reactor with lots of fuel rods, etc., with a live bunker buster nuke that literally completely cracked the reactor core?
Well, a whole lot of deaths, and that includes deaths going all the way into China, because we're at the immediate area, will be extremely hot.
Physicians for social responsibility calculated
will
out.
Take it to the east-northeast, and that will literally take it all the way to China. And when I say take it, I'm talking about lots of deaths.
Right. How likely is it that what will happen if they strike the Bashar reactor, Chris, with a bunker buster nukes, GB-54, to blast the nuclear reactor core all to little bits? What'll happen?
Well, then you will have. If they use a bunker buster, sure, you could expect core damage. And then,
right, and the core damage will be catastrophic. Our physicians for social responsibility and our nuclear experts, because I've belonged to them for many years, have basically said this radiation cloud will cross Myanmar, which is it'll cross China, it'll cross the South China Sea, it'll cross Korea, it'll cross over Japan, and then it'll head toward us. And we're going to get blasted with radiation if these morons do this. That's us and the Israelis planning on hitting a live nuclear reactor with nuclear weapons. And also all their so-called storage sites with bunker buster nukes to hit them that are actually have underground centrifuges, which, if it's down deep enough, it may not be a lot of local radiation, but there's going to be some. But hitting a live reactor, that's going to be very catastrophic. It'll also pull Russia and China into a full-force conflict. So hitting a live reactor will be, okay, that's it, nukes are flying.
Don't forget that the Israelis have a reactor that's at the center of their nuclear industry, and it can also be hit. And the Syrians have the Icelander in Russian missile, which virtually cannot be stopped by anything they have or we have, and it can pinpoint target their key reactor at Dimona.
Yeah.
And if that goes, basically most of Israel goes. You don't have to nuke Israel, you just have to bomb their reactor.
Now, Chris, have we had any progress on the nuclear site from JASCO in terms of the nuclear seismic testing in these reactors here in America?
We're getting more of the updates as they come in.
But getting them, does it mean that anything concrete is happening? Have they gone in and say, we're spending this money, we're going to fix this, we're going to fix that, anywhere?
You're talking about actually digging and
doing stuff.
Yeah,
doing stuff.
There's
so there's hand-wringing, there's reports of, we need another report because this report doesn't look so good, so we better do another report. So basically it's like the Kachina dolls. This little Kachina doll doesn't look good, so we're going to put it inside another doll and make another doll inside the doll. So basically we'll write another report on the report because the last one was scary enough that we should write another report.
I will let you know when I see a real design change, and the amount of effort that it would take to do it, an actual, contract being released.
I'll call it Countdown to AF, American Fukushima. Countdown to AF. All we don't even need to have tsunami. But there are tsunami potentials. For example, Cumbre Viejo in the Azores. If that strikes the coastal United States, we're going to have a number of reactors that are going to go postal. Some of that water can go up to 100 to 300 miles inland if it's 800 feet high, which is what the with tsunami experts in Zurich, Switzerland, and then here in Northern California at the Tsunami Research Center have found. So, not so good. And of course, if we attack Russia, Russia can set off Cumbre Viejo very easily. All they have to do is drop a conventional bomb or a small nuke, and
here's the breaking news. Iran is deploying forces to fight the al-Qaeda militants in Iraq. Wow. Revolutionary Guard forces are going in to help the Iraqi troops.
Well, that means it's
on. This is the trap for Iran that I've been talking about.
I don't think they could avoid it, though. I think that they now know that there's no choice. But our troops and our forces can't respond, and Obama will not have the military oomph to move forward. I think he's going to have a real problem with trying to get this authorized.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. If you'd like to listen to GCN programs on the go, I have great news. GCN has created a Droid and iPhone application, and it's free. Just as easy as going to GCN Live